Dr. Doug.
Okay, let me find my flow here. Okay, so got that. Okay, so I'm going to share my screen here. And what I've got here are thumbnails of a whole bunch of sessions that we've done for these drop-in sessions. And the topic for tonight is an easy topic, actually. It's actions and buttons. So I'm just going to take you through a quick introduction to those items. And this is not going to take very long, I don't think. So, when I get finished going through this demo, we'll branch out into a series of questions and answers. And hopefully you guys will have some additional questions to ask. And if not, we'll have some answers to give. So let me just, I'm going to take you through this in edit mode, since I'm going to be demonstrating things that can be done with actions and buttons. Okay. So first of all, what are actions and buttons? Well, actions are a set of actions that can be taken by flow in response to some sort of trigger. And the trigger that causes these actions to happen can either be clicking a button or transitioning from one step to the next. Okay, so let me show you first. I'm going to go down into one of these button definitions here. I'm going to take you through the definition of this button number 1 object here. And I've got a whole bunch of buttons on this step just so I can illustrate a bunch of actions. So as I'm looking at the definition of the button, first of all, the button can have a label on it. On this case, my label is B01 hide object. So here we go, B01 hide object is the label on that button. Okay. The action for that button is an action which is to hide an object. Okay. And here are the list of different actions that can be taken. There's about 15 of them. And I'll just go through them real quick. They're all easy to understand. You can delay, like if you've got a script that consists of multiple actions, you can delay between one action and the next. For example, if you are progressing through several steps, it's really good practice to delay so you can finish the animation and getting from one step to the next before you go to the next step. So it's kind of a standard when you've got scripts of that contain multiple actions, you want to put delays in there between the various actions. So one action is to hide an object, like I could hide this swarm if I wanted to. You show object, if an object has been hidden by some prior action, or if a step is configured so that the action is invisible to begin with, you can show the object through that action. You can toggle back and forth between hide and show. You can continuously rotate an object, and I'll be rotating this swarm of dots in a few minutes to show you how that works. You can play an audio clip when you come on to either when you come onto a step or when you click a button. You can stop that audio. You can open a URL out into the internet, open link. The very last one I'll show you is in a way the most interesting one. You can switch between swarm perspectives through an action. You can stop a narration, which is you can stop the spoken word, but you can keep some background information going, such as music that might be background or whatever. So it turns out I have not used that, but that's what I understand that function of that is. You can run a script of actions. This is how you launch an action script, and that is by playing the run action and then indicating which action it is that you want to run. You can go to a step, and the step is the step name as indicated in the step details, not necessarily the step number that you see here, but the step name. You can go to back to the previous step. And this is one is for the Magic Leap headset. You can recenter a scene, and we won't be demoing that one today. But I think I'm going to demo just about everything else, and it's not going to take very long. So before I get into that, any questions about actions from what I've described so far? Okay. Okay. Let's see. Let me continue describing what this button is. So I've got several buttons on this presentation. I've got like 11 buttons, I think it is, each one of them doing an action or a series of actions. Okay. On the button, a button has a label, which we've already gone over. It has the object to be run is in response to clicking the button. Buttons have width and height, just like other objects. So in this case, this button 01, I can make it smaller or larger or whatever, just by changing its profile. Okay. Let's see. It optionally has an icon. On these buttons here, I haven't really put I haven't put any on any icons except for this one, which is go to step number 3, and I'll show you that when we come to it. But you can put icons on every button if you wish. There's some things having to do with layout and the font size of the label and things like that. So you can vary the font size of the labels and the like. You can put different colors and different backgrounds on buttons. So you can make these buttons very attractive. In this particular demo, I went for numbers of buttons rather than the beauty of each button. So my purpose in this demo is to show you all the actions and all the buttons. So that's how you describe a button, and a button is used to trigger an action. So let's click this first button, see what it does. So this one is configured, so I'm going to hide an object. The particular object I've chosen to hide in this demo is this text number 1, actions and buttons. But I could have hidden any object that's on my screen here. I could have hid the swarm. I could have hid another button or whatever. I chose to hide a particular text object. So let's see what happens when I click this button. We're going to be watching the actions and buttons. And there we go. I click that button and it goes away. It's hidden, okay, for whatever reason in your presentation. Button 02 is to show an object. And it turns out, not surprisingly, what I'm doing here is I'm bringing that button back. So that's how I define that button. Button number 3 here is continuously rotate an object. So let's see what happens when I click this. There we go. Okay. The first click, I accidentally clicked on one of the dots just in front of the button. Okay. So this time I clicked on the button and this object is starting to slowly rotate. And you can set the speed. You can make it kind of slow like this, or you can speed up the rotation, which we'll see a little bit later in one of the demos. Okay, the next button is its object, or its action is go to step 3. And by the way, this label can be anything, and I just chose it to be kind of descriptive of what the action is. But this button could be labeled life expectancy for 150 years if you want. But here I have go to step S03. Okay, let's talk a little bit about what step S03 is. So I think we may have covered this in one of our prior sessions, but if you click step details, you'll find that every step you can give a name to it. S01, 2, 3. If I scroll down through these steps, you'll see this step X. That's the default that's given to the step name by Flow. And it turns out I just added this step a little earlier today, and I didn't have a chance to come back and rename it as step 6A or whatever step name I wanted to give it. It's an arbitrary name, you specify it, but then that is the name that you reference when you're setting up a button to go to the particular step. So let's see what happens when I click go to step S03. Okay, turns out S03 is indeed the 3rd step. Here's my S03, and it is the 3rd step here. So I jumped up to step 3, and I bypassed step 2 in doing that. Okay, on step 03, you've seen this a million times in these sessions. This is life expectancy in Europe over the last 150 years, kind of one of our standard demos. But this step also has a button on it. And the button says, go to step S01. Okay, S01, that's my first step. I'm going to go back from where I just came from. Okay, so I went from step 3 back to step 1. So these are really easy buttons, rotating objects, showing and hiding objects, going to a step, going back to a step. So here is a button that plays an audio. And if you go into our featured flows, you'll find audio in a small number of them. How big is big tech is a really good example. And that the author of that, a fellow named Tyler, he put an audio track for almost every step, and it's very quick. His audio clips are like 3 seconds in length, and it's basically suggesting something you can do on that step. So there's no upper limit to the length of your audio clips, but Tyler chose to do a very brief audio clip there. And I've chosen to do a very brief audio clip here. I'll play it for you here, and it's just, I think I had an audio clip hanging around that had to do with my addressing an issue in our software. So I'm going to just play this real quick for you. Play audio. Hi, this is Bill, and this is a test message that I'm going to use in a debugging situation. Okay, so that's the play audio. If I'm playing that audio, play it again here. Hi, this is Bill, and this is a I can stop it in its tracks through the stop audio button. Okay, and there's also the stop narration, which is a variation on that. So here what I've done is I've gone through about 8 or 9 of the actions that we have. Right now, at this time, Flow supports around 15 different types of actions. They can either be run standalone by clicking buttons, or they can be run standalone, or they can be combined in action scripts. I haven't shown you a script yet, but we'll get to that in a couple seconds. So any questions before I go on to step 2? Okay, step number 2. Okay, this particular step is set up so it automatically advances up to step 5 with a delay in between, so that each advancement of the step has time for the animation to take place. And I kind of delayed these like 7 seconds or something, just taking into account the worst case animation duration that I thought might be put on those steps. So that is what happened on step 2. So let me go back into step 2 and see how that happened. So I'm going to reposition here back onto step 2. By positioning on step 2, I'm not invoking the automated action that has to do with step 2, because that happens when you click the advance button. Okay, if you come into step 2 by the advance button, that counts as a transition that will trigger an action. If I just put my cursor back on step 2, it doesn't do that triggering. So let's go into step details and see how step 2 is defined. Well, in step details, there's not many things that you can define. You can give it a name, and also you can give it an action. Okay, and this is the action that's going to be automatically executed when I go into step 2. And the particular automated action on step 2 is action number 2. That's the name of it. Okay. So let's go over here to my 3-dot menu. Let's go down here where I have audios and actions. Let's take a look at what action number 2 is. So I've got in this flow, I've got 2 custom actions, action number 1 and action number 2. Action number 2 is what I'm interested in here. Here's what action 2 does. First of all, the actions are sequential. They can either be made sequential or they can be run in parallel. So this is a sequential set of actions. My first action is delay 5 seconds. My next action is go to step S03. So that's going from step 2 to step 3. Okay. Delay 7 seconds. Go to step S04, delay 7 seconds. Go to step S05. And that is the end of my action script. And when I played that before, yeah, it did exactly what I wanted it to do. It went to step 3, delayed, step 4, delayed. Then it went to step 5 and just sat there, okay, waiting for me to continue. So this is a way, by the way, if you wanted to post a flow and you want it to be continuously cycling for whatever reason, for 20 minutes or whatever, you can just have a very simple script like this that would take you through each step of the flow. And then the last step would be to go back to step number 2, let's say, if you wanted to recycle back to step 2. Okay. So any questions about this? A very simple action script. It's not doing anything other than just advancing through several steps. Okay. Okay, so let's see. The last thing I did, I was on action 5, or I was on step 5. That's where that action left me. Now let's take a look here at step 6 in step details. Step 6. Step 6, I have action number 1 has been placed onto step 6. So what this means is when I transition onto step 6 through the advance button here, I am going to trigger an action number 1. So now let's go back and let's see what action number 1 is. It's kind of a more interesting action. So I'm going into the triple dot menu, going down to action. I'm going to see action 1. Here is the definition of action 1. Okay, simultaneously, like these actions are going to happen concurrently. They're not going to be sequential. Simultaneously, continuously rotate an object. And the object on step 6 that I'm going to want to rotate is a map. Map number 1, that's this object right here. I want to rotate that. There's kind of an arbitrary scale here, 1 to 10. 10 means rotate it kind of slowly. 1 means rotate it very rapidly. Okay, so when I was configuring this step, I had set up the rotation so it would rotate at a kind of a slow speed. Okay, the particular rotation that I had set was just for it to rotate around the vertical axis. This is my X, Y, and Z axis, my width, height, and depth axis. I had set it to rotate at a level of 15 around the Y axis. Okay. The second action I have on here is also continuously rotate an object, and this is rotate map 2. Okay, map 2 is right here. And I set the rotation on this so it's rotating around all 3 axes. So it's kind of rotating in a topsy-turvy way, and it's rotating at a much more rapid speed than I have for object 1. So you can play with these parameters a bit and kind of get a feel for what they do. I think the purpose here is just for me to show you that, hey, you can set these so the rotations are different, and both different in terms of speed and the axes around which they rotate. So given all that, let's see what happens when I advance into step 7 or step 6, sorry. Okay, so here, this is what I asked it to do. Flow will do whatever you want it to do, even if it's crazy. Okay, so here what I'm rotating is, this is map number 1. I'm rotating that at kind of a slow speed, and view this as the time it takes to rotate. Okay, and it's at a very regular angle. It's only rotating around the Y axis. Okay. Map number 2, however, from the way I've configured it, I purposely made it just kind of crazy. It's rotating much quicker, and it's rotating concurrently around all 3 axes. So, I'm not sure why you would want to visualize something that way, but there probably is a use case where it makes sense to rotate things in kind of a crazy way. Okay, so that is the action number 1 that is automatically invoked when I transit to step number 6. Any questions about action scripts, which are what I've been illustrating here? Okay. Okay, they're very easy to set up. All you have to remember is before you can define an action script, first of all, you have to create the action. So I had to create this action one before and give it its componentry before I could use it somewhere. Okay. Okay, let's go to step 7 and see what step 7 does. Okay. Okay, another type of action is a link to a URL. So maybe some of you already know here that if I have a pop-up here, an overlay pop-up, I can click on a URL and go out to wherever that URL takes me. This takes me to Target's homepage, okay? Or let's see what's on this one. This dot here, I can click, I can go to the McDonald's homepage, okay? Great, so that is a function that's available on overlay pop-ups. Being able to branch out to URLs is also available in buttons. So in this case, let's take a look at this button definition here. This button right here. Its action, well, first of all, its label is linked to McDonald's, okay? Its action is open a link. And when I say that's going to be my action, it comes back and says, okay, what link? And I put in www.mcdonalds.com. So now, and there are other characteristics I can specify. I kept this one very vanilla, very straightforward. Just the point is to illustrate the action. So I click on this button, and there we go. It takes me out to the McDonald's homepage. So that's just another thing that can be done, another type of action. Pretty simple for that. Then the final step, which in a way is the most interesting one, I think. So when you're configuring steps in a flow, from prior experience, you can configure these steps to take many. You can configure swarms to take many formats. So, for example, this particular swarm here, which is my life expectancy swarm, I configured it to be a random display of dots on screen 1. Step 1, I mean. Step 2, it's like 50 countries, very busy step, scatter plot of 50 line charts, line graphs. On step 3, I had it configured to be just Europe. Okay. So let's go back to step 8 here again, and how I've configured this. Okay, I put a couple buttons on here. And what I'm doing here within this single step, step 8, I've set this so I can toggle back and forth between different perspectives of this particular chart. Back here on step number 3, or step number 3, this is known as perspective 2 for swarm 1. That is perspective 2. And this on step number 2, the busy set of steps, or a busy set of charts, that is perspective 1 for swarm number 1. Okay. So going back here to step 8, see 50 countries. Let's see how this button is configured. Okay. Oops. This button right here, the see 50 countries button, is configured so it is going to change a swarm perspective, and it's going to change the perspective of swarm number 1, the global life expectancy swarm, to perspective 1. And that is the very busy chart with the 50 line charts. Button number 2 is similar. It's also going to change the perspective for swarm number 1, but it's going to change it to perspective 2, which is this one that I'm seeing right now, just Europe. Okay, so let's see what happens when I click this button. So here we got 50 countries. Okay, so it's going to animate, it's going to transition. What I've done here is I've transitioned from perspective number 2 for swarm 1 to perspective number 1 for swarm 1. Okay, that's the 50 countries. If I want to go back and I want to see just only Europe, click that, and I'm going to get just my Europe. So here I'm not transitioning from steps at all within. This is an intra-step transition of perspective. And Sierra and I have worked on some flows where we put this to a very creative use, where we've given the user some buttons to push on a particular step, and we can throw in various ways of looking at things onto that step, all contained within a single step. So that is the action that has changed the perspective of a swarm. Okay. Any questions on that one? Okay, so not many questions today, so I guess it must be really easy material. So that, that's the end of what I wanted to do in taking you through this dissertation on buttons and actions. They're easy, they're easily defined objects. You do have to keep the order in which you do things. You do have to keep track of that. And once you've done your first couple of these, it's in your muscle memory, and it's really quite an easy part of the system to understand and to master. So with that, I am going to conclude this. I'll leave this presentation up for a couple minutes in case some questions come up having to do with this. So Hao or Paolo or Andre or Jake, or Sierra, any questions on this? Any questions on anything? Actually, this is the part of the session where we open it up for general questions.
Hey, Bill.
Hi, Paolo.
Hey, it's evening over here. I don't know where everybody is, but good evening if it's evening for you as well.
And you're calling from where?
I'm from Canada.
Okay, not similar time zone. Okay.
Yeah, Eastern time over here.
Yep.
Just wanted to say thanks first, because I was here yesterday, and it's, yeah, I don't know why you're giving free information, but it's cool. But also, with these data sets, where are you mostly pulling them from in terms of, I know there's public, for lack of a better word, libraries out there in the internet.
Right.
Where would you have any recommendations, I guess?
Yeah, and actually our in-house expert on this is Sierra. I think she'll probably have better answer than I do, but at a high level, the answer is if you find the data sets on the internet or within your company or wherever, as long as those data sets are put into a CSV file in a reasonably clean shape, you'll be able to import them into Flow, and that becomes the data from which your visualizations and your data story evolves from. Sierra, do you want to give some pointers as to places that users might go to look for interesting data sets?
Sure. Yeah. I'll say data is absolutely everywhere. You can create data stories from just like monitoring your everyday life and putting it in an Excel sheet, like, for example, like how many hours you slept for the past 2 months or something like that. And that's a really interesting data story. So I could say it starts as simple as that to, you can find more things to get started with on websites like data.world, on Kaggle. Google has a search function where you can search specifically for data sets. So that's really helpful. The United Nations has a great data repository as well. So Google is your best friend.
Thanks.
And I've gone out onto various sites looking for maps, and I went on, I think Sierra, you pointed me to the Stanford University site where there's great maps of the US states and other venues. So You know, you probably develop your own favorite sites to go to for data, but as Sierra indicated, it's everywhere. But the trick is to find the data that's relevant to your data story. I noticed in the chat, there was an earlier chat where Stephen had asked, does the play audio need to specify an audio file and what type is it? And Sierra had answered to that it can be an MP3 file. So that video clip I played with my voice, turns out I did not have an MP3 generator on my system. So I went out and I installed Audacity, which is free software. And I was able to generate that little audio clip I did using Audacity, which is very easy to use, very easy to install, very easy to use, and it generates MP3 files. Okay. Any other questions?
Sorry, I have a question.
Oh, go ahead, Paolo.
Are you able, I've never seen this in any, I guess, videos that I've seen of Flow. So I guess I'll just ask, it was just a thought, but are you able to make any of your data have motion?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, there's two ways, at least that I can think of doing it. I mean, one of them is transitioning between steps. And there's a video out on our site where I taught a session having to do with animations. And these are the kinds of things that you can do that give motion to data between steps. Now, it turns out this particular presentation is not very rich in that. It wasn't the emphasis, but you know, there between step 2 and 3 here, I have a couple really quick animations, not very dramatic or anything, but you can put tremendous amount of drama into your animations between steps if you know how to configure it. And basically, at a high level, the rule is a swarm or a map will animate from one step, or actually any object, but dots are usually what animate, will animate from one step to the next. As long as they're visible on the next step, they will animate from the prior step, even if they're invisible on the prior step. So there are some very clever ways that you can set up your your flows to configure, to realize different animations going between steps. That session, I think, is probably worth watching, in that I tried to go through a variety of different ways that animations can happen. Then the second way between, that's animations. The second way is like continuously rotating an object or whatever. We have an action to do that. And you can rotate any object. You could even rotate a text object if you wanted to, using the action capability that we've just gone through in this session. Did I answer your question, or was there some other nuance that I might have missed?
Yeah, that's about it. That was exactly it.
Yeah. Okay. Good.
I do have more questions though. I know what's going to ask you. I'll just keep firing them away. I just sort of.
Okay, that's good.
So I didn't want to. If anybody else has them, I just know that the room is sort of like quiet right now, so I just felt.
Yeah, Jake, Hao, and Andre. Yeah, please jump in if you have anything. How about if we pause for 2 seconds before we turn it back to Paolo, in case you guys have any questions? 1, 2. Okay, Paolo, back to
you. I haven't gotten the program yet. I'm really times 10 interested in getting the program. I don't mean to give you my whole spiel, but basically I graduated in 2020, post-grad, and just I came out of a journalism program. I thought this was really cool. This was really in line with what I got excited for in my program. And it's just something it's just something that's really exciting to me. And so I want to use this for telling stories and sort of showcasing the information that I'm interested in. And I was wondering if there is, okay, well, unrelated questions, but the first question, I guess, is, I was wondering if there's a place that, like, if I made something and I guess I have my own like blog, but like, am I able to like send it to Flow and like as you guys can use it as a testimony or something like that you
Yeah.
can post it, or like if I post it somewhere, like share it,
Yeah, well, I mean, if you have access to YouTube as a posting vehicle or LinkedIn or where, you can post flows anywhere where you can post a video if you want to make a video of a flow. And you can generate a URL if you have a flow using this share capability up here. You can generate a public link of a flow. Like right here, what I'm showing you here is this public link. I could send this public link to you or I put it in the chat, and you would actually be able to play this flow that I've been dealing with. So I'll do that just as an example. Let's see, I'm just going to make a copy of this and I'll send it to you in the chat here.
So are you able to record movements, or sorry, record I guess a flow presentation and then just send that to someone instead of like going live?
Yeah, yeah, there are variations of that. I think we have postings out on our website that have examples of that. And even in the featured flows, actually, there are none of those that run continuously or run with a full audio track, but they could be put in place to run with a full audio track. If you look at the flow called How Big is Big Tech, you'll find that the author of that has put a short audio clip in almost every step. So yeah, if you want to generate a flow and if you have a story to tell, you'll be able to tell it either by making a video or whatever, or if you wanted to make one of our AR videos that I don't know if you've seen those, but Michael has posted many AR videos on TikTok on his.
Yes, that's actually how I guess found out about this.
Yeah, so yeah, I mean, if you get into the business of generating AR videos, you can post those on TikTok or YouTube or wherever. Any other commentary on what I've been saying here, Sierra?
No, I think that makes sense. I think I can also share the link to we have a software called Flow TriCast that will help when you're recording the presentation of these videos. And that's a free software that we provide. So I'll really quick find the link and send that in the chat.
Sorry, what is this software?
It's kind of just like a easier version of an OBS, which is like a recording type of software, where you can put the flow behind you and put yourself kind of small in the corner if you have a green screen or with a small circle or something like that. And it just kind of puts the flow behind you while you present, and it makes recording a flow presentation look really nice for flat screens.
Oh, wow. Like almost like you can stream it almost.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Has anyone tried that where like they've streamed a flow on Twitch or something?
I don't think so, not yet, but
Is that possible?
Michael's probably interested in doing that. He sometimes does go live. I think he's gone live on YouTube or TikTok, maybe both, before. Whenever he comes back in from his breakout room, we can ask.
Yep.
I'm actually I'm interested in I guess that aspect of and I don't know how it works yet because I don't have the program and maybe I just need to learn, and I'm sort of just shooting questions here, but I wonder if, sorry, I just saw Andre's comment. I just wonder if like what does there need to be certain parameters for me to be able to use Flow Immersive on TikTok? Like why is it allowed on TikTok or YouTube? Or do they have the capabilities or something? Or am I able to use this on Instagram or on Twitch, you know?
Yeah, well, what you do is using your phone, and if you have somebody else filming you in an environment with your data, this assumes you've developed Flow and you put it in the middle of you've developed a Flow and you've put it in the middle of your living room or out in the field, or wherever you want to sit the data, so that the data is visible there. You can have somebody film that scene and you can be in it. So Michael's TikTok videos are just about all filmed in that way. So as long as you make a short video, you can post it on TikTok. Doesn't really matter whether it's a Flow or something else. We've chosen to concentrate on our TikTok postings happen to be Flows, but it's just like any other video in terms of posting out on TikTok.
Okay, and this TriCast is what you use to record?
Sometimes, although I think in the AR videos, usually not. But if you go out onto our YouTube channel and you take a look at any of the presentations that Jason Marsh or Michael have done, they almost always use TriCast. So you'll always see them in the foreground in front of the screen, talking in kind of a news broadcaster format, or weather forecaster format, where the data is in back of them and they're in the screen in front of them, in front of the data story. So yeah, so TriCast is the software we use for doing that. It's basically a virtual camera. So that virtual camera has the Flow in the background and you in the foreground. It works best if you have a green screen, although you can also do it with a small cutout that just shows a little bit around you. But we recommend having a green screen if you want to get really professional about doing that. And we've got out on our website, there's a user's guide that shows you how to do that. My recommendation would probably be get comfortable with Flow and get comfortable with building Flows first, and then branch out to using TriCast to convey your data story.
Okay. Yeah, I'm really, I was sort of trying to time everything with with other things that I was looking to purchase, for lack of a better word. So I'll probably be taking the jump soon, because this is definitely one of my priorities anyway. So
yeah. Okay, well, good. Yeah, well, good luck on that, Paolo, and we'll look forward to seeing you in some other session here. So I think this is session, is it 16, Sierra? This is 16th of these we've done. So we're trying to post them all out on YouTube. So, and the question was asked why we do this earlier, and basically the reason is so we can educate the world better on Flow. So, our goal is to get through all the major subtopics within Flow, and eventually get videos out there that address all the major sections of Flow that people may become interested in using and telling their data story.
Wow, that was actually on my mind earlier. I had a feeling someone asked it, and the feeling was right. So
yeah.
Thanks.
Okay, Sierra, do you have any answers to unasked questions you'd like to provide?